In 2024, this catchphrase exploded into the most viral meme in China.
长城 city 不 city
不 city 啊
city 不 city 啊
，city
好 city 啊
好广东 city 啊
Referenced by celebrities, tourism bureau, and even politicians. But behind the viral phrase is Paul Mike Ashton, aka Baobaoxiong, a multi-talented American who broke the internet by blending American absurdity with Chinese meme culture. This week on China Unpacked, we're diving into the man, the meme, and the movement, and unpacking how a foreigner redefined what city meant for a generation of Chinese netizens. What's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of China Unpacked. And without further ado, let's welcome the viral extraordinaire, Baobaoxiong, aka Paul Mike Ashton.
Hello.
And you're live from
Shanghai, my apartment.
I feel like when you say city bu city, it has like this very Shanghai vibe to it.
Yes.
Like it's like this very proud. Wow, look at me. I'm so city. I'm so Shanghai. Right?
Have you seen? There's a meme recently, 蜜雪冰城. It's like the cheapest form of like drink that you can get in China, and people joke that like if you're drinking 蜜雪冰城 in Shanghai, the Pearl Tower is going to obliterate you because it's too cheap for Shanghai. It's so funny. Yeah, so it's like this whole concept of like Shanghai being a little bit like uppity and everything is very funny. In Shanghai, if you speak, they're like, you have to drink Starbucks, you have to have an iPhone, and you have to speak enough English. If you're speaking too much Chinese with an Android phone and drinking 蜜雪冰城, the Pearl Tower just like zaps you out of existence.
Shanghai is so yang-qi that one of the requirements is speaking English. It's not even speaking Shanghainese.
It's like English first, Shanghainese second, and then Mandarin.
You're responsible for the most viral meme in China, of China, in the last year or two. Would you say that?
I don't know if there's a way to rank memes. But like I would say as far as like yeah, it was a big deal. I'll admit that. Yeah.
I mean, in terms of efficiency, I think your meme is probably number one because it's literally just like city bu city
Yeah.
4 syllables.
It was, I would say, like the golden era of doing social media for me was definitely when that was viral, because videos and ads were the easiest thing ever because it was always the same thing and it was a super short back and forth. I could like film and edit the product in an hour and that was it. So it was very lucky.
Wow. How did you strike gold with this meme? Like, tell us, like, how did you even create it in your head? At what moment did you realize, oh, this is good for a video?
So it's interesting. Like, I was doing like a character at one point in time, and it was just like a very short video. I was just like really excited after work, and I was like biking home, and I like did like a selfie of myself, and I was kind of like, you know, Shanghai does a lot of this like switching of lexicon. Like, there's a lot of putting English words into like Chinese phrases and like business English and business settings and everything else. And I always thought it was really funny, and it's got like a little bit of like a pompous vibe to it as well, you know, like that kind of like brassy New Yorker. So I was kind of like playing around with this character and trying to like describe how happy I felt in the city. And I just said like how city while I was filming myself. That video didn't blow up. I did another one. The numbers were okay though, so I did it again, and I did it on the Bund by myself, and then it kind of like I let it go for a bit. A friend of mine who was doing social media in China invited me to do a collab with him, and he was kind of like, you should. He had written that in the script, and he's like, you should do this more. It's got like a real ring to it. I think it should be your slogan. And my sister was coming into town the next day, and both of us have like exactly the same sense of humor. We have a lot of chemistry together. So I was like, okay, well, maybe we can film one of these together. And we were on the Bunt, and we did that. We both loved the video, but like, you know, if you've done any social media before, you know that like it's probably not the videos you like the most that will do well. Then we posted it, and it had 10 million views before the end of the day. So it
That's
was like
crazy.
it blew up. It was crazy. It blew up so fast. And then as soon as that happened, I was like, okay, well, we're going to have to do another one because that's how the internet works now. If you do something good, you have to copy yourself, And so that's what we did. I didn't really realize maybe how big of a deal it was until it was a while before I really realized like how big of a deal it was. Because for a while I was like, I'd had like one video a couple years back that had gotten I think it was like 8 million views, which in China is like big, but it's not like enormous. But like nobody copied that. Like City bu City was weird because the meme got more popular than me so fast. And then everybody was doing it, and it was showing up on like concert stages and in advertisements, and like famous people were copying it, and famous influencers were copying it. And that all started happening probably like a week afterwards was when I was starting to realize, oh, this is really big.
Wow. So there's like brands that trying to trademark this phrase. Have you heard about that?
Yes, yeah, that was so weird.
What is your thoughts about that? I mean, like, you must think, wow, this is something that I created.
Yeah, I mean, like, in some ways, it's like, capitalism. Like, of course, you don't do it yourself, someone else will do it. Like, people had told me before, you should trademark this, you should like brand this, and then my first response to that was like, oh, that sounds kind of cool, but also like the popularity of it was based off of the fact that people were willing to copy and share it. And then if I turned my business strategy into trying to like sue people that were using it, it just didn't really sound like the type of work I wanted to be doing. And then on top of that, it was also like I was making money from it from people that wanted me to do City bu City stuff. So I was kind of like, well, why would I bother like changing my course to be like legally active? But then when I saw that, I was like, oh, okay, so I guess this is why people brand things, because otherwise people are going to steal it from you. But then we did some just like basic research, and my agency that I work with here now talked to a lawyer, and the funny thing was the lawyer like equated it to trying to brand a poem. Like they were like, it's me like trying to trademark Levi's phrase. I was like, you can't really like, even if you wanted to claim it, it would be pretty tough. It would take like 2 years to get it officially branded if we were even successful. And that sounded to me like, okay, well, if I can't brand it, nobody else has got a chance. So it's probably it's fine. So we let it go. But it was pretty crazy. It was crazy to see other people were trying to like snatch it away from me.
I'm glad right now it's free for everybody to share. It's a good vibe, when you hear something. So, oh, this is so city.
There's been a couple times where it'd be like, oh man, Shanghai has put it on like Lujiazui, the big like center city like complex there has a like shifting screen on one of the buildings, and one of them says "What's I Shanghai," and then on the side it says "City bu City," and it's like huge, so it's like that's really cool. That would be nice to have royalties on, but
basically you create a slogan for the tourism bureau of China.
Oh my god, the number of times it's been used is it's so funny. And it's like I had a friend that was like, you did all the marketing work for like Ulama for a while. Every week would send you a message on the app that would be like, is buying this food blank bu blank. Like City bu City was the first thing they used, and then they were like cool bu cool and like easy bu easy. Like, it was like, and my friend was just like, you just basically like the marketing agency for Ulama just like basically didn't have to work for 3 months.
Wow, just kind of walk us back. How you got into China in the first place?
Yeah, so I studied Chinese in undergrad, and I did a semester in Beijing during that period of time, 6 months there. I had visited Shanghai, and at that point in time, I was like very into like the culture and the language, and so Beijing was a really good place for me to be. But I also saw Shanghai as being like, while I was there, I was like, I could see myself maybe like living here if I were to move back. And then after graduating from college, I wanted to get my Chinese language skills to like a business professional level. So my goal was to go back to China and like live there for a period of time. I worked for a company for 2 years that said they were going to send me over there initially, but didn't have the legal means to do it. So I spent like 2 years working there and then started looking for opportunities to get myself back and did a master's program in Shanghai in tourism management. The Chinese government offers scholarships for higher education students, and they kind of have like a focus on like Western countries specifically, because I think there's like a interest in doing some mutual brain drain, because a lot of Chinese go to the U.S. for higher education. So it's like, if we can get people from the U.S. to come here for higher education, that's great. And then I graduated during the pandemic, where it was like, okay, I could either stay here where things are open and there's still stuff going on at that point in time, or I could go back to the U.S., which at that point in time was not a good place with the pandemic.
So I'm curious, what drive you to keep learning Chinese? Because you have a long history of, just study abroad in China and learning Chinese, learning the culture. So what drove you?
Masochism, I think.
It's a painful process to go through.
Yeah. I think like it's a love of pain. I grew up in rural Pennsylvania. We weren't looking at the rest of the world. we had like a connection with Germany. That's about as far as it got. And so like when I first started learning Chinese, it just like was such a like eye opener for me, and I was like so fascinated by it, and there was so much to learn as well, and it was always so gratifying for me to like dig deeper into that. And so even though it was frustrating, and even though at times it felt like futile, there was just something so exciting about getting like one step deeper. When you're talking about like cultural distance, there's probably very few people that would deny that China has a very different perspective, like has a pretty far cultural distance from the US. Mm-hmm. And being able to learn the history and the language and like be opened up to that, and different styles of humor and different perspectives on how the world works, and like just be able to communicate with like a seventh of the world's population that most people can't speak to is so exciting and so gratifying to me that it just has always like spurred me on, even in the most like frustrating times.
Wow. So I imagine growing up in rural Pennsylvania, you always wanted to try to get out, right?
Yeah, I don't know why. I just was like, maybe I could go somewhere else.
Is it like, because I know there's like Amish people in like...
I grew up in Amish country, yeah.
Really?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, we had our Walmart had a place to park your horses.
What? Dude.
There was like a stable. Yeah.
You could leave, right? You're not like...
So I was not Amish myself. I grew up in Amish country. So I grew up, I was Catholic. We had all the stuff that normal kids had, but the Amish community was a part of our like area. And so we would go and get like, our local markets would have these incredible Amish baked goods, and we'd be dodging horse and buggies on the road and everything else. So
I guess when you first came to China, what was your reaction? Did you have like a, so city reaction when you first came to China?
In Beijing? Oh my God, no.
You're a Shanghai boy.
Yeah. Now I am. No. Beijing is very city. Beijing is city in its own way. Because 2013 was when I first started living in China for a period of time. That was my study abroad program. It's my first time in China. I went to Chengdu, and then I spent most of my time in Beijing for a study abroad program. I mean, like, at that point in time, it's very different than it is now. I mean, like, you definitely saw, like, hints of the speed at which China would kind of, like, outpace the Western world when it came to, like, technology, because there's so much cool stuff that's happening here now that we don't really have in the U.S. or aren't really investing time or money into in the U.S. Honestly, the biggest impression I got at that point was the people, because the level of, like, hospitality Chinese people show to... Specifically, I should qualify this as a white foreigner. The amount of hospitality that Chinese people in general show to foreigners is really amazing. People will go way out of their way to help you with something, or to kind of like have a conversation with you, or just like get to know you better. And then I think especially with Beijing too, the mix of like, the old and the new was just so striking and so cool to me. For, like the US, we don't have anything as far as like our cities are concerned. A lot of times we don't see stuff that's older than like 200 years is old for us. China's like, this thing has been here for 2,000 years.
I'm curious. Do you have like a city scale, a city per city scale? And if so, like, what is your top 5 city? What is your top 5 Chinese city on your city per city scale?
Okay. So I would say that Shanghai for me is probably most city, because that's like what inspired me to do it in the first place. I love Shanghai. I think it's such an incredible city to live in. I have been in love with the city basically since I moved here. As far as China goes, my second favorite city in China is probably like Chongqing. Just like based off of like, because when I'm talking city, I'm talking like kind of like the vibe of like walking around and like experiencing it. Chongqing is like so otherworldly. It's such a weird place, and there's so much happening there. I think it's wild. I think it's so much fun. I would say like Chengdu as well is a really cool city. But I feel like Chengdu is a lot less about like the cityscape itself and more about like the feel that the city gives you. The people and kind of the vibe and like the culture there are just like so cool. I mean, like those would be probably like my top 3 picks. The only 3 cities that I feel like I have enough experience in to actually like really be like, these are my faves. Beijing. Some people love Beijing. I feel like I have to mention it because Beijing is Beijing. Beijing is less about the city aspects of itself, I feel like. I think it's much more about its culture. And people that love Beijing, like, love Beijing. But they love Beijing largely because of, like, the people that are there and the art scene. Beijing people are what make that city, I guess that would be my ranking.
How do you explain this to like someone who's never been to China? Like, let's say like your parents, because you got your parents doing this video too, right? So they like, how do you explain to them, like, or even your sister?
Yeah, my poor family. The way that I explain it to people, usually in the U.S., is that I'm like, do you know the demure thing? I was like, I'm like demure for China, basically. For a period of time, like everybody was using the word demure. It was like a big meme. On Western social media. I like explain to people like I basically was the demure thing in China and Chinese speaking Asia. One, I'm also like baffled by the scale at which it blew up, because I didn't do it and was like, ooh, this is gonna be the one for me, It was like silly. It was stupid, The other thing too is like I've done performance. I've done improv. I've done stand up. I've done drag. Like I've done lots of artistic projects that I was much more invested in, that I spent a lot more time in, that I was like much more proud of, that maybe like 10 people appreciated, And then I do this stupid 30-second video with my sister. The first video was 12 seconds, and we filmed it in maybe like 30 seconds, like in maybe 2 minutes. And that's the thing that like becomes, my current legacy. So that's, I think it's oftentimes hard for me to explain as well, because as it was first blowing up, I was pretty invested in like Chinese social media, but when it comes to like Chinese like traditional media, like movie stars or TV stars or like singers, I'm not familiar with a lot of them. And so people would send me videos of like people that they were like, this person just copied your meme, and I'd be like, that's amazing, but I have no idea who they are. Explaining it to people oftentimes is still a little tough. I usually just say like, like it means like city or not city. It means exactly like, it's just like a catch-all for the phrase of like what it feels like to be in the city, and it's like the demure girl like meme.
So why do you think this resonated with people in China so much? Have you thought about it?
Yeah, I have. I've thought about it a lot. Like, I think there's a couple layers. One of them is that China is really globalizing and modernizing really fast. Before, China was pushing was at the frontier of a lot globally. But I think people are starting to like recognize that more as well, as opposed to just being like begrudgingly noticing it. And I think that Chinese people are especially very excited about that. There was an element that was like from like a kind of official side of things, that a foreigner kind of recognizing these sorts of things in like kind of a tourism sort of perspective was very attractive. The other elements of it, the more kind of people-focused elements of these things, was that the mix of Chinese and English is something that I think more and more people in China are becoming comfortable with, and also represents kind of the, the fact that Chinese is also becoming a bit more of a global language. We're seeing it be a lot more frequently seen outside of Chinese populations than maybe we would have before. And so seeing those two like paired equally, I think was like appealing. And then I think also just like the internet in China really thrives off of like abstract and weird language memes. Like the number of like language or phrasal memes in Chinese internet is very big. And so I think if there's something you can kind of like mimic that's simple and sort of like a little bit rhythmic and a little like weird, is a good thing.
Wow, that is super deep. From 20 years from now, you can see a textbook that's going to reference this time period in China, and then it's going to use the city bu city phrase.
People have already sent me like research papers that reference city bu city. It's been like the government talks about it sometimes. Like, it's crazy. I got very lucky as well. There are strings being moved in the background when it comes to like social media and the government, and sometimes like the social media in China, I do still believe is like largely user driven. But China travel was getting a lot of investment, and a lot of like post-COVID mentality for China has been like, we want more people to come now. We do want to be open up. We do want people to see us as not just a travel destination, but also a business investment destination. And so I also got very lucky because it kind of was like, as I was doing that, like when I did that thing, it was like, ooh, this is hot right now, and it matches our political goals, So I think there was probably like the platform was like pushing a little bit to be like, okay, we do like that this is going big right now, so like let's give it more. So I also got lucky from that end.
So we have spent the last 30 to 40 minutes talking about a 4-syllable phrase. So have you, just curious, do you feel burned out by this phrase?
What I didn't realize when I first started out was the fact that it would give me a ton of opportunities, but also really limit me. I think the thing, as I mentioned before, like I think one of the things that I found really frustrating was I see myself as a comedian. I've spent so many years doing offline performances, and have done some things that I think really reflect what I can do artistically. In some ways, it was definitely frustrating at the off-start to like basically be eclipsed by this phrase. The meme is much bigger than I am as an individual, I've definitely been like embracing the reality of like, okay, this is an opportunity. It is a gift, but also you need to kind of push through, and like you need to like use this as leverage to do more, I don't mind talking about it. I'm very thankful for it. Nowadays, like, I feel a little bit less of like a gag reflex when I'm supposed to be doing it in videos than maybe like 2 or 3 months ago. But I think that that's also because my success on social media, I was getting a little bit of success before City bu City, but like very small. Like my largest platform before City bu City was Douyin, and I had 50,000 followers, which on Douyin is nothing. Because I knew I could do good offline comedy. I knew that I had funny stuff that I could do. But translating it online, where people only knew me as this meme creator, was like a really tough thing to like push past, because it gave me a lot of self-doubt. I'd be like putting stuff out that I thought was really funny, and then nobody would want to listen to it, or nobody would want to watch it. And I think it wasn't until like maybe like December, which was like 6 months after City bu City, that I first got like a video that did well that had nothing to do with City bu City, and that was like a big breakthrough for me, where I was like, okay, I'm still funny, like, I'm not just a meme, but now I'm in a much happier space with it. I don't feel as limited by it. I enjoy doing it when I do it. You know, like I will still, if I go to a new city, or if I'm with a content creator that I really like, or collaborating with somebody, I do like doing city bu city. But I think it's important to realize, like, although it's a part of my legacy, it's not all of who I am, and I need to continue to like keep that in mind as I grow.
So you're a full-time content creator now. After that phrase, you're now full into content creation. So do you ever feel stressed? Because I mean, China is the biggest social media in the world.
I mean, like all the time. A lot of jealousy, actually. A lot of jealousy and a lot of raging against the algorithm, you know. I mean, yes, like it is very competitive. This is probably one of the places in which like City bu City has really given me a lot of like a huge gift, is that like I do have a bit of a reputation. Most people, if they don't know me as like Baobaoxiong, which is my Chinese handle, they know me as the City bu City guy. And so if I'm being kind of like considered for an ad or something along those lines, I think that reputation alone does help. When City bu City first happened, it was awesome. And the ads came in super easily, and it was super exciting, and everybody wanted me. But then as the meme started to die down, I was super stressed because I'd heard about kind of people that had a good run and then just kind of like disappeared. And so that was kind of like always breathing down my neck. The process of creation doesn't stress me out. Oftentimes my struggle is like, how do I communicate? And this is also something I experienced in stand-up, which is like, how do I communicate? How do I get people to understand why I think something is funny? And especially doing that through social media is a very different beast, because you're also dealing with like attention span, you know, which is not something you have to deal with as much when you're on stage. There are certain creators that I look up to that I don't know if I could ever accomplish as much as they do, you know, even simply just because like I don't have the cultural context here. You know, I haven't grown up here. I'm still struggling to learn the language. I could write a joke in English that if I translated over, it wouldn't make sense, you know? Or like I could try to deliver a punchline in Chinese of sorts that doesn't register. But I guess like there are some benefits to that in the sense that sometimes people want, you know, foreigners to talk. Like sometimes they want somebody like me to do the thing that they want me to do. And in some ways at this stage, I have done so many awful videos and had so many flops in collaboration, and people will still seek me out. I feel a little bit less anxious than I used to. There are going to be new opportunities on the frontier, and there's also going to be dips, and you're going to have to just embrace both sides of that.
That's true. That's true. So I'm just curious, do you do stand-up comedy in both Chinese and English?
I would say most of my experience is in English. I have been kind of pursuing and pushing to do more stand-up in Chinese, and one of my favorite things I've been doing recently is I have I'm part of a Chinese improv group now. That has been such a challenge, because improv was the first comedy art form I got involved in. I started in college, but doing it in Chinese has been such a challenge, but so exciting and so fun. I think that as soon as you give up on your ability to be something different than what people see you as, that's when you're going to fail. You know, as long as you push yourself and you look for more creative opportunities and you're willing to keep putting yourself out there, I think that typically you will find something that sticks.
Yeah, it's true. You just gotta have, as a creator, you just have to experiment with different things that, you know, find one that works for you and your audience. It's just always like a balance trick between like what the audience want and what you want.
Yeah, jeez.
And also what the
so much of like
what the brand wants too.
that one's the worst. That one's the worst.
It's like the brands, they don't really understand like what makes something go viral.
It's like, do you want me to say what you want me to say and have 10 people watch it, or do you want to listen to somebody that knows how to get views and get more actual of what you're looking for? You know, like it's like always the conversation is I think oftentimes the times that we're most successful is when we are genuinely just following our joy, and there's these like magical moments where that aligns with what people want to see, you know. And then we get that, and then after it like ends, we get really stressed because we're like, well, how do we get that attention back? but we forget that where that came from in the first place was like a certain level of authenticity and genuineness that doesn't come from trying to chase the crowd, you know?
So what is your plan for the future? What other contents are you looking to create?
I would like to be doing more offline stuff again. I want to be doing stand-up again and doing it better than I was before. And then I guess like the other thing is Mei Mei's going to be coming back to China probably in the next couple months, which I'm super excited to like spend more time with her and create with her and stuff like that. So my mom and dad came already. They came this summer. We had a blast and we did some silly videos together and it was all great.
Did you make them do it?
Oh yeah, absolutely. But the thing with my family is like, they're all desperate to have the camera on them. That's the problem. Is like I'm directing, but like they steal the show, which I don't like, because we're all fighting for. We're all hams. We're all attention whores, and so like, people are like, how do you get them to like? They're like, oh my gosh, your parents, you're like family. They're so easy to get behind the camera. I'm like, you don't understand. They would take the camera from me. Like, my little sister is like, she's excited to come over here. She's basically like, I just want you to film me so I can be like my little, like, I want to be like a little superstar.
Oh my God.
It's like, that takes work, Emily. I have to have something when you're gone. I have to think about me.
It's like they can all be their own influencers.
Yeah. Literally, I've told them before, I'm like, you guys could do this too. It just takes a certain amount of like investment. Like, Emily is so funny. I was kind of just like basically directing and providing the structure, and her job was just to be like silly in the background. And that works so well because that's what she's really good at, you know? And so I've told her before, I'm like, Emily, if you wanted to do social media and you just learned like basic skills of stuff like that, you would have no problem with it. That's the difference, I think, between a lot of us that do this type of stuff successfully and those that don't, is like the work.
Your family, I just feel like when I see all these videos, it's like there's level of this synchronization to you guys' just reaction to each other.
We have either been blessed or cursed with having like that sort of like the level of genes in which we are kind of carbon copies of each other. Like my littlest sister would oftentimes joke like she moved to a new school. We moved locations and she was in a new school. It was interesting because like in the past where we grew up, everybody knew her as the last Ashton. And so she was always like compared to the rest of us. When she went to this school, she finally got to be like somebody that wasn't compared to any of us because we hadn't gone to that school. And people would be like, wow, you have siblings. Who are they? What are they like? And she's like, well, my oldest sister is just me, but taller. My brother is me if I were a boy, and my older sister is me with curly hair. So it's just basically like clones. Add that to the fact that like my dad is a very musical person and was like very insistent on all of us being very musical in our upbringing. I think like rhythm and synchronization and timing and stuff has always been kind of part of our like family dynamic. So.
Wow, that's the Ashton gene, the viral gene. You guys have the viral gene.
It's wild. Yeah, but it's always like syncing up, and like me and Emily when we were doing this stuff together, it's like in improv there's like people you like really vibe with sometimes that just like can kind of read you without really needing to know you that well. And, you know, Emily hasn't done improv, but, like, she's somebody that I know gets me immediately, like, almost like that, like, level of psychic connection. And so when she came to China initially, I knew we were going to have some fun times and be able to do some really funny videos. But I think that really also helped as well was the fact that we could do stuff to a level of, like a level of, like, identicalness that was frightening.
It sounds like you're pretty comfortable in China now. You've been there 7-8 years. And you're doing what you love right now. So,
yeah.
I mean, do you experience reverse culture shock when you're coming back to America?
I mean, now, yes. Like, I think people living in the U.S. are getting reverse culture shock from being like, this is not the place I lived in 2 years ago. I was in China the full 3 years of COVID, and I did not leave China. There wasn't a lot going back in the U.S. from a professional standpoint or from a social standpoint that really like drew me back there. So, but at that stage too, I was so invested and so like ingrained here that the price and the risk of actually being able to get back in was completely unfeasible for me. So I decided to like stick it out, and I kept thinking like, okay, well, hopefully it's going to open up soon. Hopefully there'll be a shift at some point in time. And then suddenly it was 3 years. But I think that was kind of when things really shifted for me, and when when the U.S. started feeling not like home. My family also moved around a good amount. When I go back, I see my family, but I don't really have any close friends that are in that area at the same time. So I think that like those things really pushed me to feel more comfortable here. And I think there are certain things that once you get used to it abroad, it does become very difficult to reacclimate. You know, like I hate driving. I like public transport. I like having affordable taxis. I like not having to be worried about getting shot. I like being able to buy food. I don't think that the U.S. does a great job subsidizing produce or groceries. Here, food is relatively inexpensive. There's plenty of expensive things here, but I do think that even in a city as big as Shanghai, you can live a pretty affordable lifestyle. I think that what has to do with the way that like money is partitioned here that I don't think we do in the US to the same extent. So I'd say like when I come back, I do struggle with like, or, you know, even just getting around in the US, where I think that's like the big thing for me is like, I don't like having a car. I don't like having to drive. And most places in the US, that's how you get around, you know? Yeah, so I would say like I do feel a bit of reverse culture shock in those senses. Maybe even like less like culture shock now so much as just like it would be a shift in all these different things that I've come to be really happy with about my current life.
Do you notice there's some habits that you bring back? You're like, oh, holy shit, that was I'm so Chinese now. Do you notice that?
Yeah, I would say like slippers in the house. I love slippers in the house. I hate walking around like my family still does the whole like shoes on the rug thing sometimes still. It makes me very uncomfortable. I don't really like just walking around in like socks or bare feet either. Which was how we usually were when I was growing up. I think sometimes the way I like respond to things is very Chinese. In that like, is like the way to respond. Like, yeah, like that is the best way to respond to anything. It's so economical. What's been kind of a shift within the last year or so as well has been most of my social circle is now Chinese as well, and then all my work is in Chinese too. So I spend so much time talking in Chinese that I do occasionally have some issues remembering. Like there are certain phrases that have become so important to like the way that I communicate nowadays that sometimes I don't have the same equivalent for that same expression in English. And so there are times in which I will kind of like code switch accidentally with my family or otherwise. One of the best words is like in Chinese is ma fan, right? And there's like no, like the word troublesome in English is troublesome. But the word ma fan is great and has so many different uses in Chinese, you know? So anytime something is like troublesome or frustrating, it's so much harder to find the English equivalent to express that because ma fan comes so easily and naturally now.
Yeah, it's kind of like, oh, this is so annoying or this is so frustrating. I guess in Chinese you have one word for everything. So
it's one word that does, and it's just 2 syllables, and it has a sense of like you know, like ma fan, you know, it's got like a sense of like frustration about it, you know, like, whereas like annoying, the word itself is annoying. Like, annoying, right? Like,
what's something that most people don't know about you?
I mean, like, I guess like most people don't know I did drag and I was pretty good at it. So I used to like style my own wigs and do my own makeup and I could sew as well. So I would like sometimes sew my own outfits as well. Basically anything that like I can do something with my hands and like get my hands on to like create something is like really, really fun. I think I'm to be fair though, like when you ask that question, I think it's funny because like what do people know me for is the city bu city thing, which is so not anything. What do people not know about you, the guy who created a 3-word phrase?
Everything else.
Yeah, it's almost like what do you know about me?
Have you done drag in China?
Yeah, I mean, I started doing drag here in China, actually. So when we were doing it before, it was a little bit on the down low, but generally speaking, like, the performances we were doing would get licensed, and they would get, like, permit approval. Because you got to think as well, like, China, Beijing Opera was drag, essentially, by the Western lens. You know, a lot of, like, male actors doing female characters. And then even the male characters in Beijing Opera are quite like decorated, you know. There's a lot of makeup and there's a lot of outfit going on, right? We were hosting like fully licensed events that I was one of the organizers for, and it was a great scene. There are still really talented drag performers over here, and that's the thing with like this type of art form is like it never disappears, it kind of just like shrinks and stuff. But I learned from some really amazing, a lot of the people that taught me were I learned from a lot of drag kings specifically. I was doing like more like non-binary drag, but I always loved the process of like makeup, and like there was a lot of really fun things. It's like such a comprehensive art form. There's like so many different elements you have to do. If you like theater, you have to learn everything about theater and try to do it all within like a 5-minute period of time. It's really fun.
Yeah, because I mean, it's not just dress up and look the part. It's just like it's a whole performance art behind it.
I mean, you're like you're doing your own makeup, and it's not just like stage makeup. It's intense levels of like facial transformation. You're doing usually your own outfits because you're not necessarily going to find stuff off the rack that fits your body. That's what you're looking for. Doing your own choreography. I was hosting my events as well, so there was like a comedic aspect to it as well, And then you're also like directing all this. There's lighting cues. There's like it's totally nuts, but it's a blast.
What's the LGBT scene like in China or in Shanghai?
Speaking as an outsider, so take it with a grain of salt. This is kind of like my observation. Like I think a lot of people in the US will look at queer culture based off of the number of kind of like public, open, or like exposed, like visible spaces, like queer community is oftentimes very much defined by the bars, the community centers, the events, in China, I think partially because of cultural difference, partially because of the environment that people are here in, it's a lot more defined by, I think, small communities of people. So it's very big and it's very active, but as a foreigner coming here, you might not find it to be the level of like activity you're looking for because it's not as visible or in your face as you might see in the US. That being said, you'd also simultaneously be quite surprised to see like not small amount of Chinese couples very openly expressing affection for each other in public spaces, and not like necessarily making out, but like being clearly coupled and clearly queer coded. The US is very much like, because of our kind of like individualism mindset, everybody in the US thinks they're a god. Everybody thinks their opinion is important and worth stating. China is very much like, if it's outside the family, it doesn't really matter to me. You might see a little bit more kind of online, some more like maybe potentially bullying or nasty comments or something like that. But in public spaces, the likelihood of somebody like calling you out, being aggressive, or like remarking on your queerness is very minimal, because it's very much like, I'm not focused on you, I'm doing my own thing. Now if it's talking about like coming out to your family, that's a very big and a very different kind of experience.
One question always come up is this place safe for LGBT travelers? Would you say China is a safe place for LGBT travelers?
Yeah, I mean, like, okay, let me put it this way. Nobody is getting shot in the in China. Just that alone, like, so I think that like one of the things that is kind of is kind of like consistently frustrating from the American mindset is this idea that the United States is at the apex of safety and comfort and satisfaction. And that is not true. Like, we have a good amount of legal rights, not just for queer people, but for people in general, that is maybe not afforded to other people, other places. But I think it's so important to note that, like, most places, you don't worry about getting shot at a grocery store. Like, that's not how most places function. You don't find people in China, in most circumstances, there are obviously outliers, but in most cases, you don't find people that like attack other people physically for either the way they're presenting themselves or the way that they act or anything else. There are some really progressive elements about US queer culture, but I think something that like we constantly overlook is the reality that queer people exist regardless of the system that they're under. And the elements of like our identity and the elements of what our community does is we find ways to exist and make ourselves happy in systems that do not support us. That happens in the US. It happens everywhere. And so this idea of like, I think that there's something very frustrating about Western culture erasing the existence of queer communities or queer safety outside of the United States because it doesn't match the system that we've created for ourselves there. And I think it's important for us as like allies to people that are not in the United States in these communities to recognize and support them in their pursuit of that. I also have trans friends here that are like, I would much rather be in China right now as a trans person than I would in the United States. By no means should you cross China off your list if you're looking to explore it as a queer person. Because the other thing too is there's like there's like you will be safe and there's so much other cool stuff going on too. So
Oh, thank you so much, Baobaoxiong, Ashton. They give us a lot of great perspective on things that's happening now in China.
Thanks for having me.
Really, thank you for being on this podcast and help bridging the gap between people of different
My
cultures.
pleasure.
You're doing a really great thing being the culture ambassador of the Chinese tourism bureau.
Unofficially, I guess.
Thank you guys for watching China Unpacked. Until next time, this is Victor, and this is...
Baobaoxiong, Ashton.
And we will see you on the next one.